Good morning, dear friends. At present, we are in the period of activism against gender-based violence, where we try to focus in on this big evil within society. Gender-based violence is not only violence against women, but we also find gender-based violence against children and also men. Although the gender-based violence against women is much more prevalent, the statistics against them are extremely high. And therefore, most times, the focus falls on gender-based violence, especially against children and women in society. Gender-based violence has different faces. It can have the face of physical violence against a woman, where she is physically attacked, raped. It could also be that there is emotional violence against a person, where that person is emotionally broken down. It can be psychological in some way or form. It can also be monetarily, where money is withheld from that person and manipulated with money. In most cases, the gender-based violence includes a mix of all of this. To take control over the life of a woman and a child. In many cases, those who are victims of gender-based violence is also isolated from the community and isolated from family and friends. This is a most horrendous crime that is being perpetrated against someone else, mostly women and children. As a pastor, I would like this morning to put the focus on the role of the church in dealing with gender-based violence. I do believe that faith and the faith community, and in especially the Christian community of which I am part, can play a very big and positive role in helping victims of gender-based violence. However, first of all, the church needs to look at itself before it can help any woman going through gender-based violence. We have to decode, in a certain sense, our own biases in terms of what gender-based violence is. We have to decode our own understanding of where the woman is ranked within the society of the congregation of the church. What her place is in that structure and what power she has within that structure. And I'll explain why I think it's important to decode this. You see, over many, many centuries, and especially from the Judea background of the Christian faith and the kind of society it grew from, one needs to be aware that in the old Judea communities, women were seen as possessions and had no power, had no influence, had only status through the man she was married to. Paul came and changed that. And in many instances, we take the texts that Paul uses in a way that is not true to what Paul meant about it. And we use it to subjugate women even more within our religious structures. In Ephesians 5, Paul says that a woman must be subjugated to her husband. But we forget that in the first instance, Paul says, each one of them, husband and wife, must subjugate themselves to Christ. And one wonders what this word means. We have made it to mean that a woman should be subjugated to her husband in a way that he is the one that controls her and has power over her. He is the leading force in their marriage and in society. And that she has no voice. She has no power. But the word Paul uses in the Greek for subjugation means something very different. It is a military term. A military term that means the army is on parade and they are filing up in line. And at the first point, at the end of the line, is the chief, the general. And the picture this word tries to describe is getting in line with the general, Jesus Christ. And then it comes and says the wife has to also come in line with her husband. They have to be aligned with each other and aligned with Christ and His Word. And then it describes in which way each partner within the marriage gets in line with Christ. The woman gets in line with Christ by seeing her husband as the one taking responsibility for for making sure that this family is in line with God. Then the husband is told, you must get in line with Christ as Christ did for the church. You must do for your wife. You must give yourself up, your own life, in service of your wife. In the first pages of the Word, it is said that husband and wife are equal. Genesis 2, Genesis 1. unfortunately, a fundamentalistic way of reading scripture and taking a Judea culture quite different to a Western culture and placing that over what our values are, and then reading the scripture and saying, well, we have to be like that, where woman has no voice and has no status, has no power. And I think this has perpetuated the whole thing of gender-based violence in our communities from a Christian perspective. So first of all, I think the church needs to examine its own power structures. Male dominance within many churches, Christian churches, plays a very negative role in dealing with gender-based violence. The church, as Christ did, must give away its power and become a servant of its congregants, of its community. It must, in a certain sense, open up and be accommodating of those who are the least within our communities, and be accommodating of those whose power and voice through gender-based violence is taken away. We need, as church, to examine the way we deal and structure our congregations, and in which ways we play a part to perpetuate and enforce, unknowingly sometimes, the whole phenomena of gender-based violence. We should, in a sense, become a community in which the church opens up and becomes a center of education and awareness in society. The congregation should educate its congregants on what gender-based violence is, on how gender-based violence affects the lives of victims, but also the perpetrators. It should educate our congregations so that we can form an understanding of all the effects gender-based violence has also on our communities, and the pain and suffering it brings about. But we should also educate our congregants in what ways we can make a difference. We can be supportive of people going through gender-based violence. Secondly, we should support and open up resources, give access to legal education, legal aid and counseling for those who go through and are victims of gender-based violence. In our congregations, there are legal practitioners sometimes that can aid those who go through the gender-based violence and help them to understand their rights and what the legal processes entail. We also need to do some training and support for leaders in our congregations. We should equip our leaders, and we should equip service providers to victims to be advocates for our victims. This is very important, especially those societies within our communities, like social work, NGOs, that help address these problems in our society. We can help by funding them, by giving them a voice, by helping our congregants to understand the great work that these NGOs do to help people who are victims of gender-based violence. It's especially important that we train our leaders, that they are not only made aware of, but that they are trained in helping those who are affected by gender-based violence, that they are equipped to recognize it when they see it, and that they are equipped in dealing with it, even if it's only to get the victim in contact with the professionals that can make a difference. I also think it is important that we address church leadership and how we think about women and children within our structures and the role that they can play. The church leaders should be equipped to be more compassionate and have more empathy. They should be equipped to address the imbalances in power in the church and the dynamics of those power imbalances, so that the victims can find a place where they are not judged, where they are not victimized for a second time, but where they find a space of safety and understanding. We also need to be a community that breaks the cycle of violence. This is achieved when churches treat victims with the utmost dignity and respect, as they reconstruct their broken lives. It is well known, dear friends, that faith can play a very positive role in people's lives. People who belong to a community of faith, so it is shown by academics and academic resources, are people that have less angst in their lives. Prayer and spiritual guidance practices can help people who experience gender-based violence to find a way to think through and find answers to the dynamics of what is happening in their lives. Prayer and spiritual practices can over time help them find hope and find ways in which they can externalize what is happening with them. And in all of these instances, the church can play a beautiful, beautiful role in helping victims of gender-based violence. But the church can also help the perpetrators find help so that they can overcome their insecurities that lead them to abuse other people in their lives. Friends, I hope that this 16 days of awareness of gender-based violence will help us once again to put the spotlight on this terrible evil within our society. But not only that it will equip us to make a difference. That we will not only be more aware, but that it would bring us in to moving and making a difference in those who are affected by it. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. And may God bless you. And for those victims out there, I'm praying for you, praying that you will find a way out of the terrible circumstances you find yourself in. Thank you. Goodbye.